Hello and welcome to the Oxygenaddict Triathlon Podcast. We're brought to you every week by our sponsors PrecisionHydration.com.
Precision Hydration offer electrolyte drinks in different strengths to match how you sweat. Personalise your hydration strategy today at precisionhydration.com and get a free box or tube of pH worth up to $9.99 using the code Oxygenaddict.
We're also brought to you by foodcell.co.uk.
The next generation of top tube nutritional carriers for your bike, designed to allow endurance triathletes and cyclists to carry enough food and gels while allowing easy access. Use the code FREEPOST for free delivery worldwide. Check it out at foodcell.co.uk.
And we're also brought to you by new sponsors Tribe.
Natural sports nutrition delivered direct to you. Try a trial pack of 6 delicious energy bars, protein bars and protein shakes for just £1, including post and packaging. Head to wearetribe.co/oxygenaddict and use the code TRIBEOxygenaddict.
Cool stuff. All right, welcome to the show, everybody. Hells, my friend, how are you today, this beautiful, beautiful rainy evening?
Is it raining? Have I missed that completely?
It's just started absolutely lumping it down here, yeah.
Yeah, I'm fine, Rob. I was running today, so I'm feeling I'm going to be glad to sort of sit on my backside for a couple of hours.
You need to chill out a bit, don't you? Yes, I was catching up on Twitter on your exploits. It sounds like you went for a bit of a hit out at the Wilmslow Half Marathon, and unfortunately, all did not go to plan. Am I correct?
No, all did not go to plan, but I'm quite okay about it. So I was probably aiming for around about the 1:30 kind of mark, maybe just under, but that's kind of where I was shooting for, and I felt okay to begin with, and I sort of stuck with the 1:30 pacer, and I was thinking, oh, this is all right. I was running along with Naomi Kira Wright, listener to the show, and I was like, yeah, this is fine. We'd had a nice little chat. And then on the first little incline, I was like, oh, I suddenly seemed to go backwards a tiny bit, and I was like, oh, my legs aren't feeling amazing. And then mile 3.5, I literally hit the wall. I got spat out the back of the group, and I was like, oh my God, I've never hit the wall in a race at mile 3.5.
That was just it. Just pace gone, out the back, feeling terrible, game over.
Felt bad. Legs felt just like almost sort of weak, like there was nothing in them.
Yeah.
Mile 4 had to go into the Portaloo.
Oh, never fun.
And I was like, okay, right, well, that's... Right, well, we're definitely not going to be on for anywhere near 1:30. Okay, you could quit at this point. Quitting could be a good option because you're not feeling it. The little voices in your head saying, don't worry about it, just quit. Maybe you could walk. Have a go walking. I was like, no. And then the other voice in your head's like, no, just, carry on, it's okay, you're going backwards, but let's just carry on. Everyone like being overtaken, okay, going backwards. And then, oh my God, I'd really had to grit my teeth to get to the finish. And
well done you for grinding it out and getting there, I reckon.
It was not pleasant. So Rob, we've spoken bits about periods on this podcast, and so I think it's actually good to talk a little bit more. So my period disappeared again last month, and I was like, oh, what the hell's going on? And then it was, well, obviously then I was just waiting for it. So it had decided to come on Friday, and yesterday was Saturday.
Perfect timing. Thanks very much.
Exactly.
You're nowhere around when we needed you, and now you're back when I don't want to see you for the weekend.
That was it. So Friday, I was like, oh, thank God, in a way, but equally, if you could have just waited, you'd waited that long. Why not wait a few more days? Yesterday when I did the little pre-race.
Do you think that was part of it? Was your body a bit kind of not feeling right?
When, sorry, on?
Like today, the race result, do you think it was just an effect of your body having been out of its natural rhythm?
Yeah, I do actually. I really do because I think, yeah, I've been doing all right in training. So I do think it was down to that. Like
Yeah.
I I felt like I was having sort of stomach cramps for 9 miles.
Oh, that's never fun. Oh,
Um,
you poor thing.
it's okay, but it's good that like so I had never done a race with having my period before, so it was a first, and it was quite unpleasant.
Yeah.
There you go. That's it. So
So do you think it's a case then that with some athletes, like was it Nikki Bartlett you talked to who raced Ironman Lanzarote?
yeah, yeah.
And she was fine, wasn't she? She was just like, I felt like I was going to die the day before, and then on race day, I was fine.
No. Race day, she said it was awful, and she was
Oh,
an emotional wreck, and
oh, okay.
she was on the pavement, sort of just in pieces, thinking, I cannot do this, with
Right.
really, really, really bad,
Misremembered.
yeah, really bad stomach cramp. So she got through it, but
Got you.
it was not good, and she said in her interview when we did the big sort of podcast about periods that um day 2 for her is of her period is usually awful, and her coach would usually put in a rest day, and Ironman Lanzarote fell on day 2.
Right. That was it.
Yeah.
So is it basically, is there nothing you can do to mitigate it then? It's just a case of race and feel terrible or don't race.
I think I do think everyone is different, and I think that maybe, even month to month might be different in terms of symptoms and how you're feeling, and because sometimes actually during it, that's when you're meant to feel, people do race PBs and everything. So I just
Right.
think it
Okay.
is quite individual, and
Yeah.
some people, perhaps um, you might have a really heavy month and everything feels really, really bad, and then other months it might be a bit lighter, a bit better. So I do think it's very unpredictable.
Yeah. Got you. Well,
Really
well
is
done you for getting
unpredictable.
through it. And I mean, in the big scheme of things, 4 minutes away from your target time is not a massive amount, is it? When you're feeling so horrible, so it's not like you walked it along and got in 2 hours or whatever. I think you did really well, Hells.
No,
Pat on
I
the
think
back.
that's what I'm taking from it.
Yeah.
I don't really know. I felt that terrible that I don't really know quite how I did get to the finish line in like under 1:35. So I'll take that.
Yeah.
It's another sort of 13, 15 miles in the bank. Great. Um, and I finished it, and I don't have to think, oh, I didn't finish it. I'm not beating myself up. It was just a really pretty rubbish. Like I've never felt that terrible. So there you go.
Well done for making it through. Round of applause for Hells,
Yay!
everyone.
Yay! Yay! Love periods. Woo!
You got through it, bless you. Well, you're not the only one. I'm sure there's lots of other ladies out there feeling the same after having raced on a Sunday, Hells.
Yeah,
Not fun.
exactly. This is it.
Yeah.
I am definitely not the first. I will definitely not be the last. But it's sometimes good to hear that other people have similar experiences. So
Yeah.
there you go.
I hope this helps somebody out there out.
I hope so.
Should we do a bit of race results this week, Hells? We've had a few races going on around the world, so we'll start off by giving a big shout out to show sponsors Precision Hydration. Remember, you can get yourselves a nice free box or tube of Precision Hydration worth up to $9.99 using the code Oxygenaddict. Their Precision Hydration electrolyte salts come in different strengths to match how you sweat, as we said at the start of the show. So what that means is, for some people, you are relatively light in terms of sodium concentration sweater. They've got 250 milligram and 500 milligram sachets for you. For people like me, who are the sweatiest people on the earth when it comes to sweating, they've got up to 1500 milligram sachets. So you mix it into your drink, completely tasteless. It doesn't taste salty like the old electrolyte drinks used to, and it helps you keep that electrolyte balance in your body, which is super important, both in terms of managing muscle cramps, but also if you're racing long distance, especially in the heat, in terms of managing the amount of sodium you've still got in your body to ward off the dreaded hyponatremia. So check it out over at precisionhydration.com. All right, bit of race action this weekend. Here in the UK, we had the Clumber Park Duathlon, which was a qualifier for, I think, either the Europeans or the Worlds, or both, was it? Yeah.
The standard was a qualifier, wasn't it?
For the Worlds, yeah, that's right. And surprise appearance on probably, I think it's fair to say, both the women's and the men's side by the winners. We had win taken out by the ladies. We had Ruth Purbrook take that out, and on the men's side we had Will Clark take it out as well. So both of them opening up their season there. I think Will Clark's lining up for Texas, isn't he? Ironman Texas in a few weeks' time. Yeah. So looks like he cruised along quite nicely.
I think he got a new course record as well, Rob.
Yeah, I'd imagine so. It looked like he really laid it down on the bike when I looked at the splits. I think he was 3 or 4 clear minutes ahead of anybody else. So it looks like he's dealing out the power on the bike. So good luck to you out in Texas, Will. Let's do the podiums, Hals. I'll do the men's podium. It was Will Clark, followed by Jonathan Morris and Bruce Rayside.
And on the women's side, Ruth Purbrook took the win. Beth Wilmot was second and Amy Rockall was third.
And there's also a sprint distance as well, where for the ladies it was taken out by Becky Tipping. Second place was Hannah Pearson and third place was Natalie Duncombe.
And the men, James Thompson won ahead of Lee Mellor and Rob Payne.
Good stuff. And I get to give an extra little shout out to Natalie because it's my show and I coach Natalie. So well done, Nat. All right, racing in other places around the world where it was probably a little bit warmer than it was at Clumber Park this weekend. We had the 70.3 Davao down in the Philippines.
Yep, and this was won. Well, Craig Alexander was in action. He didn't quite get the win. It was won by Marcus Rowley of Germany, with Crowe in second, ahead of Tim van Berkel in third.
Yeah, it looks like he pretty much laid it down on the bike. He was 7 clear minutes ahead off the bike, Marcus Rowley. So although it was quite close at the finish, I think he kind of ran within himself to the finish. Crowe, on the other hand, we talked about him just the other week. I think he's 45 or 46 this year. Ran 1:17.14 to close out 6 of those 7 minutes of the lead that he'd lost on the bike. So another phenomenal performance from taking out, as we said, Tim van Berkel, Tim Reed. Still racing at an incredibly high level, isn't he?
Yeah.
Very impressive. And over on the ladies' side, we had Radka Karlefelt took it out. I think she pulled away about the 5K point on the run, away from Caroline Steffen, who again we talked about just the other week, making a return to racing after the recent birth of a child. And in third place, Caroline Siddell. So Caroline Steffen obviously in very good swim and bike form, and the run form's coming back. So it'd be good to see her racing. I wonder what her plans are for racing over the longer distance coming up. Be good to know.
Yeah. But Rob, she's 40 now as well, Caroline Steffen. So she's doing. It's just really inspiring, I think.
Yeah. It's easy to look at like having a child and then kind of go, well, that's it. Like the cap's put on your triathlon career now. But to come back from that at the age of 40 and still be racing at the very highest level like that's really inspirational.
It's great, isn't it? Yeah. So yeah, loads of brilliant women on the scene at the moment for sure. There was another race going on, which was
brilliant women.
Yeah, in Taiwan. We had Sarah Crowley on the podcast last week, and Precision Hydration, part of one of their athletes, and she's in great form. She took the win in 4:21 ahead of Grace Theck and Els Visser.
And over in the men's race, Bradley Weiss of South Africa took it out ahead of Cyril Vienno and Luke McKenzie. Looked like Cody Beals was making a running for a while as well and DNF'd, I believe, due to sickness, it says on social media. So, so good racing from those guys down there. Awesome stuff. All right then, a bit of Coach's Couch this week.
Yep, so Mick Simpson says, what are the best tips for an improved transition time? And Mick adds, I don't leave my shoes on the bike. How do I build up to this? Great question.
Yeah, it is a great question. And it's a great timing as well, I think, we're talking about the first races of the season here happening in the UK. So those transition times, especially if you're racing duathlon, can be a real big place where you can put 5 or even 10 seconds into somebody. And that doesn't sound like much and it doesn't look like much on paper, but 10 seconds running wise, you're sort of 50 meters up the road from somebody when you leave transition, aren't you? So it really can be the difference between beating somebody and not. So first things we'll talk about this in terms of triathlon transitions initially. So the first one is, I think, coming out of the water, a real good tip that we often forget at this point in the year when it's freezing cold and none of us have had our wetsuits on recently, is it can be really hard to get your feet out of the wetsuit. So a top tip is a bit of baby oil down around your ankles can really help it slide off quickly. But do not put baby oil actually on your hands. Somebody showed me a trick in the early days, which is to put your hand inside a plastic bag, put the baby oil on the bag, and then kind of rub it over your ankles that way, so you don't end up with the baby oil on your hands, because if it gets on your goggles or it's just a nightmare for the rest of the day. It's almost impossible to wash off. So baby oil is great for helping that last couple of inches of your wetsuit come off around your ankles. Next tip is helmet on your bars rather than on the ground. So if you've got tri-bars on, you can rest your helmet upside down on there, and if not, you can hang the helmet by one of the straps from like the hood of your brake lever, and get the straps laid out as well, so they're hanging outwards, and have that helmet laid out so that as you're standing facing the bike, you just pick the helmet up and slap it straight onto your head, so it's kind of tail pointing away from you, I think is the way to describe it. Straps out already, helmet goes over the head, and click there. Now the next thing, I think, and this speaks to Mick's real part of the question, is what do we do about keeping our shoes on the bike? So the first thing to do is you're going to need some elastic bands to make this effective. Ideally, your bike shoes are going to be tri-shoes that have got those heel loops on, and if not, there's ways around it, but you essentially need to use an elastic band with the left-hand shoe. Put the left-hand shoe backwards so that hook, the elastic band, goes around the rear derailleur open and closing mechanism. Not derailleur. What do I mean, Hells? The quick release mechanism of your rear wheel. Okay.
Yep.
So the little thin elastic band goes around there, and with your right hand shoe, the elastic band is going to just hang over your front mech. So it sounds like this is really dodgy, and it's, until the first time you try this, you're convinced the elastic band's going to pull bits of your bike off, but it doesn't. If you get those really nice thin elastic bands, it's just going to break the minute you put any pressure on it. The reason we use elastic bands is if you try and run with your shoes already on the bike, but the heels are not lifted off the ground, the heels of the shoes are going to start bouncing along the floor as you go, and then they're going to start kind of spinning around on the pedals, and all kinds of bad things are going to happen. Your shoes will fly off. So
and then you can't get your feet in as well because the shoes are upside down or whatever.
Exactly. This is going to hold your shoes essentially parallel to the floor, so that when you're over the mount line, you can just swing your leg over the bike, step onto the shoe, and essentially ride away. So a couple of other tips there. Get your bike in the right gear before you get going, and especially if there's any hills straight out of transition, make sure you're in a relatively light gear, because a classic thing triathletes do is they take the bike out for a little practice ride on the morning of the event. They come zooming up to transition and decide everything's great, but the bike's in quite a big gear still. So make sure you change down into a nice easy gear to ride away on. And then in terms, Mick, of the best way to practice this, you're just going to have to find a quiet place where you can take a bag full of those little elastic bands, set your bike up, and just practice. So the first thing is to just practice riding away by cocking your leg over the bike, press down on the right hand foot and ride away, and then practice by going into a short jog with your bike first. I don't advise trying to do the flying mount like you see a lot of the professionals or ITU athletes doing. I don't think that that's necessary at any sort of age group level. You can just stop with your bike, swing your leg over, and off you go, and it's going to cost you half a second or less. I've seen so many hideous things happen with people trying that thing, and either men badly hurting themselves, landing on the run of the carriage incorrectly, or worse, having a bottle behind your saddle that your leg gets caught on as you try and jump over. So yeah, there's all kinds of unpleasant things.
Not good.
But that's it. You just need 5 or 10 minutes of practice in a quiet place like a car park, or even the tennis court at your local leisure centre is a good place to go and practice, where you've got flat level ground, where you're not going to get disturbed, where you won't feel self-conscious. Do you think of anything else there, Hells, that you would add to that?
Yeah, 2 things. I think I remember when I did some practice, I did it in like the Village Hall car park, classy place. And
sounds perfect though. Quiet, no one around.
No, honestly, it was absolutely perfect. And just 10 minutes of practicing, and really going through it and getting it in my head, almost the routine of doing it.
Yeah, totally.
made a big difference. Not everyone agrees with this, but depending on race distance and how, if you're going to wear socks, if you're not going to wear socks, then talcum powder can be quite helpful in your bike shoes. So you'd put it in beforehand. Not everyone agrees. The other thing is a little bit of Vaseline on the back, like on the heel bit of the shoe. So again, it just helps you slip your foot in.
Yeah.
And the same with your trainers, a little bit of Vaseline on that back heel bit. The other thing I was going to say is that if you're doing a longer distance race, and especially if it's Ironman branded, usually you have your transition bags. So, you can't put your helmet on the bike. You can't have anything really on the bike apart from your nutrition. And all I'd say for that is really try and really minimize the amount of crap in your transition bag, because if suddenly you've got like a waterproof and you've got arm warmers and you've got leg warmers in there and everything else, which really you don't need because it's going to be 20 degrees forecast or whatever, because you've looked at the weather, but you're having to like get your waterproof out of the way to be able to get your sunglasses out. So really, I would say think very carefully and go minimalist in your transition bag. Have everything you're going to need, but don't take the kitchen sink.
Yeah, I think that the key to it there is just the practicing, isn't it? It's whatever you're going to do, have a little routine that you've practiced through, and it can be a great thing to do on the evenings on the week where you're tapering for an event. Is, again, as you've said, Hal, it's a really good point. The big branded events, you're going to have a bag with your helmet and probably your shoes in as well. So just practice getting your helmet and your shoes out of that bag when you're sitting by the sofa watching the telly. Practice putting the helmet on and off. If you don't think this makes a difference, you can do a quick YouTube search for Chris McCormack at the Ironman World Championships, and he must stand and spend 30, 40 seconds trying to get his helmet strapped on up, just having an utter nightmare on the day. So, and he'd said he'd practiced hundreds of times as well, so it just goes to show you can't practice enough to do this. But just get out there and give it a practice, Mick, and you can shave definitely handfuls of seconds, if not minutes, off that transition time.
Definitely. And elastic laces, if you haven't not got elastic laces and you're doing like a sprint or Olympic, definitely invest in some elastic laces for your trainers.
Yeah, well, that's the last thing, isn't it? For the running shoes, having elastic laces in there that are pre-tied and are already comfortable for your running shoes is the absolute key to getting your shoes on quickly. And you absolutely will waste 30 seconds tying laces in transition. So £3 or £4 spent on eBay buying a set of elastic laces is a really, really good idea. Yeah, absolutely. So we got this question actually from asking our question, who's got questions for Coach's Couch, in the Oxygenaddict Triathlon Community Facebook page. If you're not already a member, you can join up. If you've got a question you want to ask for Coach's Couch, you can pop it up in the community Facebook page. That'd be awesome. And a big thanks to everyone who's left a review of the show on iTunes. We're now up to 178 5-star reviews. If you can help push us over 200, the magic 200, that would be brilliant. It has made a massive difference to our rankings on iTunes. When I looked earlier today, we had 4 shows ranked in the top 10 worldwide for Triathlon Podcast, which is pretty amazing. So a big thanks this week to Tim Moore, Bixter600 and Atul Patel for leaving reviews for us. And Bixter says, you've only had 1 review recently, so I wanted to help you towards the big 200. So nice work, Bixter. Thanks very much. We really appreciate it.
Brilliant.
Okay, so over to our interview of the week. Interview sponsored by foodcell.co.uk. We talked about these at the start, hasn't we? The next generation of nutritional carrier. Are you loving the slidey top on the top of your food cell?
The slidey top is ace, because for ages I had a sort of Velcro thing, and I would just always...
I had one of those as well.
It would just... Well, you'd sort of close it, wouldn't you? But then as soon as you picked up a little bit of speed, it would start flapping open, or then you'd be rubbing your knee against it.
Oh,
so yeah, the slidey food cell.
Did you ever get that thing where the Velcro used to catch you on the end of your knee, on the inside, and you'd end up with like almost like a friction burn on the inside.
Yes, grazed knee by the end of it. Yeah, definitely.
I remember buying one of those from the expo before my first Ironman in 2003 and thinking it was brilliant. I'm going to get all this food in it for race day. Never try something new from the expo. And just having this damn thing rub my knee almost raw. I ended up pulling it off and throwing it by the roadside. So
you don't get that with Food Cell, because
Food Cell does not do that because it's got a slidey lid. So the really cool thing with this is the slidey lid we refer to is openable with one hand. In fact, as I've tried this, it's openable with one finger. Slide it back, take out your food or your gels. It's big enough to get 4 gels or 4 nice size snack bars in. You can even get a spares kit inside it, and then slides back again with one thumb. Easy peasy, and you're back along riding. It's aerodynamically tested in the CFD simulations to actually improve the aerodynamics of most tri bikes as well, which is awesome if you're worried about that kind of stuff at the top end. So check them out over at foodsell.co.uk. You can get a free entry into the Outlaw. You can be entered into a competition to win a free entry for the Outlaw, the Nottingham full distance race, with every Food Cell purchase between now and the 1st of March 2019. You've got to click the box at checkout when you buy it, say you want to be entered into the draw, and make sure you read all the legal stuff in the website's terms and conditions, please, as well.
I'm just going to say, Rob, 1st of May. You said 1st of March by mistake.
Did I?
Yes.
Idiot. Thank you for the catch.
No, I was thinking, no, March has passed. But yeah, definitely 1st of May, 2019.
The 1st of May, 2019. It's because on my sheet I've highlighted it orange, Hals. I can't actually read it with the orange background. Note to self, change for next week. All right, so interview of the week this week is Ironman New Zealand winner from a couple of weeks ago, Mike Phillips, who just did an amazing job taking the win in the final couple of kilometres. I'm not going to spoil it by talking you through the various other epic things that went on. So here's this week's interview of the week with Ironman New Zealand winner Mike Phillips. All right, so we're very happy to have Mike on the show. Mike, thanks very much for joining us. We've been trying to coordinate times with you being in New Zealand and me in the UK, but I think we've managed to get it sorted. I'm up early and you're up late by the look of things. So thanks for joining us, man. How are you feeling post New Zealand?
Oh, thanks for having me. Yeah, I'm still pretty tired, actually. Still pretty jaded. It's nearly 2 weeks now, so need to start getting moving again. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of the end of the season for me, so it's nice to just chill out for a little bit.
Hey, well, listen, first up, congratulations. What an amazing performance. We've only basically read the reports that we can read online, but it sounds like it was a pretty special day for you. And one of those days where it pretty much went down to the wire on the run, right? So what I'd like to get you to do is to retell the story for us from the swim forwards, and we'll kind of not spoil the suspense for people who haven't heard the story so far.
Yeah. I've sort of got the halves pretty nailed down now, but the fulls have been a bit of a different story. I'm still pretty new to the full distance, so it's definitely been a work in progress. But I had a really good one in my first race in Barcelona, and so yeah, I followed a very similar thing for this race, and just wanted to get out there and see how I go against the guys who are kind of leading the charge from New Zealand at the moment. So in the swim, I was actually really cool and had a nice wee group just behind Dylan. I think there was 4 or 5 of us, but we managed to get a bit of a gap on Andrew Starkowitz and Cam Brown, who are kind of the big threats for the day that you don't really want to. If you can get a head start on them, it's always good. So yeah, that was pretty good that we had a nice strong group and we got out on the bike early, and the pace was pretty solid and I was feeling good. And then my armrest came undone on my aero bars, so I had to call talk to the draft motorbike and see if they could call the mechanic. And eventually the mechanic came up, but by this time I was kind of holding one of the pads in one hand and the other pad was basically sitting on the base bar. So I decided I needed to pull over because without the pads it was going to be a long, long day. So yeah, we managed to sort them out, and I think I stopped for about 2.5 minutes, maybe a little bit longer. But it's much better to have those secure for a long day out than to have them rattling around. So yeah, I mean, after that, I panicked a wee bit. There's a strong group all together, and I'm by myself. with the amount of sight. So I sort of spiked my power a little bit there, which was probably a bit stupid, but I managed to get the gap back down to about 1:30 at the halfway mark on the bike. And then that's when I came into the town and underestimated one of the corners and didn't really hit the brakes before it. So I went straight into the fence on the other side. And that's how I managed to break my hand in the race.
But, so you really went through it in the first 90 Ks. Hey, it was mechanical drama and then a crash before you even onto the second half of the bike course.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking, this day couldn't go any worse. Like, I was kind of thinking, when's the next race? When can I fly somewhere else? And but the last thing you want to do is be lying in the middle of the road where all the spectators are. So I was pretty quickly out of there and making sure my bike was all right. I was really lucky. There was like not even a scratch on my bike. So that was really fortunate. I was thinking, oh no, the wheels could be rubbing or anything. Like I hit the fence pretty fast. So it was that was another bit demoralizing there. And the last 90 Ks was pretty grim. But just rolling up the last kind of 10 Ks before town, I picked up Terenzo. So it was kind of then where I thought, I can't be too far off the pace here. And coming into transition, I think I was nearly 18 minutes down on Starky, but the other guys, Braden and Matt, were only another minute and a half in front of me. So, at this point I was kind of thinking, I'm back in the race. Maybe I can get on the podium here. So I've trained a lot on my running this past couple of years. It's been my weakness for a long time. So I really wanted to just get to the run and try and execute it, around a 2:45 marathon. And so I started kind of at that target pace, but expecting to slow quite a bit in the last lap. But I managed to just keep ticking the Ks off, and that wall that I thought I was going to hit just never really came. So I was able to just calculate in my head the last 15K or so to make sure I caught Starky just before the end, which it's quite nice to have a couple K up my sleeve and be able to enjoy that last little bit.
Wow, I've never imagined anyone using the phrase to be able to enjoy the last few kilometres, because it reminds me of that classic story Mark Allen tells from back in the day where he was like 13 minutes down at the start of the run and he was going, there's just no way. There's no way you can make up half a minute a mile on somebody, and he kind of goes through his sort of like his mental process. What were you thinking at the point you got off the bike and you found yourself, was it 18 minutes down, did you say, on Starky?
Yeah. It was actually quite funny at the first kind of turnaround on the run course. I think he was nearly like 4.5 Ks in front of me or something. So, I've seen him, and then I've still got 2.5 Ks to run to the turnaround. I was like, wow, it's so far in front. But I was just focused on myself at that point of the race. It wasn't until kind of halfway where it became apparent that, I might be in with a shot. So, I think that's probably what saved me, was not trying to catch him too early and hoping he fatigued a wee bit in the end there.
So you're doing the maths and you're thinking, well, Starky is well known for going off the front on the bike and putting down blistering bike splits, but he's always a fairly solid runner as well. But 18 minutes is a significant gap, isn't it? And like you were saying, I think you've run low 250s a couple of times before, haven't you? And I've read on your blog, which is very good, by the way. I've read on your blog how you've often been out at like 240 pace for the first half, and then the Iron Monkeys have climbed on your back at the 30K mark. So it must be nice to finally have that amazing run where you keep on trucking and you run in 240 pace and it just keeps going and the fade never happens.
Yeah, so I guess I've trained a lot for that, and also worked on my nutrition a wee bit too. And I think it was a combination of the two which resulted in me slowing so much at the end of the races. So, it always drives you on as well, knowing that there's that carrot up the road. Like, if I'd not had those mistakes on the bike, would I have been able to run 240? I don't know. Like, maybe I would have just tried to get to the front and then ran, 246 or 247, and that might have been, in my head, I might have thought that was the best I could do. So, it's actually quite good that it really pushed me to see what I could actually do over that distance.
It made me laugh a little bit earlier on when you said, when you crashed your bike and you got up and you were like, oh, I was really happy that the bike wasn't damaged and the wheels were spinning fine. You kind of skimmed over the point there where you mentioned that you broke your hand and your hand. So were you in a lot of pain? I mean, I've broken my foot. That's all I've ever broken. And I remember I didn't particularly feel like doing much of anything for a few weeks afterwards. So I'd imagine biking 90k and running a 240 marathon with a hand that's throbbing like hell is probably pretty difficult, right?
Yeah, it was actually the hardest on the bike. I found like the roads in Taupo aren't the nicest. They're pretty rough and there's a few bumps and potholes and that. So especially riding along trying to hold the bars and then trying to pull out drink bottles and stuff like that, it was that wasn't the nicest. But actually on the run it was not too bad, apart from I had to kind of reach over and grab the cups from the other side because I was trying not to grab them with my right hand, so that was a little bit annoying. But it was just the last half of the bike, and I was so happy to get on the run and just not have to hold on to those handlebars any longer.
Listen, let's go back a little bit. Tell us how you ended up getting into triathlon in the first place, because having had a read over your blog, it's obvious you came into the sport with a real talent. You had a second place finish at Challenge Wanaka back when it was a full distance race. And then you had what I believe was the world's fastest ever debut at an Ironman branded event in Barcelona, where you went 752, something like that.
Yeah, that was Barcelona.
Pretty astonishing iron distance debuts.
Yeah. I guess I did a lot of different sports when I was at high school, but it was when I went to university that I sort of thought, okay, I'll try and do triathlons a bit more specialized than trying to be kind of this jack of all trades. So that's when I started taking it a bit more seriously. But I was racing in the ITU, I was never really up to speed. So my biking would have been the strongest, and that's kind of, once I'd done 3 or 4 years of ITU racing, I started doing half Ironmans and racing professionally, and I was on the podium in most of those races early on, and I was still working as a structural engineer at this stage. So after doing that for a few years, I thought I'll give my first full distance a go and throw the job in and focus on it a bit more, and that's kind of what I've been doing the last 2 years. And I had a really good build up for Barcelona, which is probably the result of that performance that I did over there, and I pretty much replicated that for Ironman New Zealand and got a really similar outcome, I think, with just, an extra year's progression in there. So, I mean, that's kind of where I came from and how I got into it. And, I was Kona last year, so I was a little bit on the back foot. I'd been kind of injured for a bit of the year and racing kind of last minute. So, I was happy just to get there and get experience. But now I sort of, after the Ironman New Zealand, I've got the slot for this year, so I'll be trying to go back and go a bit better than I did the first time around.
And how was your experience in Kona that first time out there? Did you have the classic experience of being out in the lava fields and under the heat of the sun and just thinking, wow, this place is pretty brutal?
Yeah, it was a bit different than I expected. I expected the conditions to kind of be the hardest part, but I guess I've raced in those conditions quite a lot. And I found it more difficult just having that caliber of athletes there. Like most Ironmans I'm racing, after, 200 or 300 meters in the swim, there's probably 5 people left or, a couple of people around you. Whereas over there, you're halfway around the swim. It's like an ITU pack. It's like, man, there's 50 guys here who can swim. It's like, wow, it's crazy. But mainly on the bike, like I was at the back of that mainly group and there was probably maybe 30 of us together, but with all the up and down hills, you just get such a big yo-yo effect that I was effectively like sprinting and braking for 3 hours, and that effectively made for a really hard last 50k coming back on the bike. But on the run, I mean, I ran a pretty steady pace and managed to pick up quite a few guys, but I mean, the goal was to run 3 hours and I was just under that, so I think the run felt kind of okay. It was just the bike I really needed to get to the front of that group or go off the back and just ride my own pace.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that because it reminds me of we had an interview with Joe Skipper a couple of years ago where he'd been out to Kona and he'd been off the back in the swim the first time, so he rode his own race and kind of got to the front of the race, and
the next time he went, his swims improved and he was in the main pack. And he said afterwards, it was the worst mistake I could have made, because his experience was exactly like yours. It was like he was either doing 450 watts or no watts, because it was sprint and break with the yo-yo effect. So how do you think you might approach Kona differently next time, having experienced that this time around?
I think, like, I didn't realize because I was sort of at the front of that group coming out of the water, and everyone was sprinting past me going through the town, and I was thinking, like, what are these guys doing? You know, there's so long to go. But once you're up on the Queen K, it's really hard to pass. You know, you've got like all the technical officials right beside you, a long train of guys. People in front of me, I saw them just try and move up, 5 spots or 10 spots even, and then whenever they slotted in, they got a penalty straight away. So, I mean, you've either got to put in like a 10-minute effort to try pass everyone, or you've got to just really hope the gap opens up and you're able to get up to it, because if you're out there in no man's land and you can't make it past everyone, like, that's a penalty as well. It's like, it's really hard.
Yeah, it sounds like it's super difficult to even get yourself into position, and I think from hearing the story a few times, it sounds like that's the main challenge for as you've said, you've got 50 guys who can all swim really, really well. You've got 50 guys who can all, on a good day, can all bike within a few minutes of each other, and everyone's kind of trying to get that same 2 or 3 spots at the front of the pack. So it's a real challenge, isn't it, for a guy like you, who you've got this proven ability to race really well in the heat. So, from all the 70.3s down in Asia that you've done really well, and it's obvious you've got, that's a kind of a natural advantage, I think, isn't it, from the people who've really got to work on the reclamation and things like that. But then you've got this now proven ability to run down in the low 240s, which again is almost like the final piece of the puzzle, I think, for people who are really going to be genuine podium contenders out in Kona. Everyone likes to think they can run 240 flat, but there's only a handful of you who've actually done that, especially in hot conditions. So I guess what I'm interested in is how your mindset is going to be different going back this year, knowing that you've run in the very low 240s, and very, very few people have done that.
Yeah, I think my swim's actually also improved since Kona last year. So I think the ability to be able to swim, if you can swim in that front group and be out on the Queen K before the masses of guys catch you, I think that's a real bonus. So that would be the A game plan. But if you can't do that, then I guess you've got to just put in an effort early and try and get to the front and then just stay there. But yeah, I don't think, like, this year I thought, I'm still with the group, even all the surging, as long as I stay here, I'll be fine. But just all that surging after 3 hours, I was just completely cooked. So yeah, trying to get to the right in good shape and still in contact with those lead guys is like, a big part of the puzzle, I think.
Yeah, totally. Listen, I want to ask you a little bit about the training that you did that's been different leading up to New Zealand. You mentioned that you've been working really hard on your run. What are some of the sessions you've been doing that you think have made the difference to your strength in that sort of back half of the run? So I've just been trying to work mainly on consistency and getting in good volume as well. Like, I guess it's stringing those weeks together of a lot of quality running back to back is where I find I really get a benefit. If I do, 2 weeks and then I have a niggle and have a week or a lower week and then, another big week and a low week, I just don't really get the same benefit as if I can string a lot of good quality running together and recover from it. Like, when I was working and things like that, it was a bit harder to try and get the recovery in. And I've definitely found that this summer with a bit more free time, that extra time just to recover and make sure you're getting good sleep and nutrition around your sessions really help me keep that consistency and the volume there. Okay, interesting. So it's more like the consistency and the day in, day out frequency of running without picking up a niggle or an injury that you think's really made the difference, rather than and again, like it sounds like the recovery is a massive part of that, which is so hard for age group athletes, isn't it, when they're trying to work a full-time job. And I think I read something that you wrote on your blog where, or maybe it was an interview that I'd read with you, where someone said to you, have you stepped up your training since you turned pro a year ago? So this must have been a year ago, this interview. And you said, actually, the thing that's made the biggest difference since I gave up work is not I'm training more, it's that I've got more time to recover from the training that I am doing.
Yeah, so I think when I was working, I was actually doing the same training basically, but I was just a zombie half the time, and that you don't quite get the same quality. Like a lot of the sessions I found, 1 week I'd hit them, then the next week I wouldn't, whereas now I'm quite a lot more consistent and I can kind of hit the same numbers each week. Whereas when I was working, I definitely should have tuned it back a wee bit, I think, because now I think I'm probably getting the right amount of volume for the recovery I've got.
And are you still coached by John Hellemans? Are you still working with him? I read a while ago that you were being coached by John.
Yeah, until about a year ago. So he was my coach for 2 or 3 years while I was doing the long distance stuff, and he's kind of taken a bit of a step back from sort of top level coaching now. So he'll still advise me if I've got some issues, or because he's also a sports doctor. But I've been just following the kind of structure we've had for a bit of time, but also doing a few things that I wanted to work on myself. So I'm still following quite a similar training plan to what we had before, but I'm kind of coaching myself at the moment.
Okay. And let me ask you this about, so racing from down in New Zealand, how inspired are you to follow in the footsteps of athletes like originally Cam Brown's is what I would imagine would be the immediate influence to you, who is still racing, which to me is mind blowing because he's been racing at the very top level since before I started triathlon back in 2000. And obviously you've now got Terenzo who's coming through and who's had some absolutely amazing races as well. How important has that influence been on you growing up and racing triathlon coming from, the Southern Hemisphere?
Yeah, I feel like I've watched the Terenzo versus Cam Brown the battle each year since I was 10 years old, it feels like. But it was actually quite funny. Cam Brown put up a video just before the race of, I think it was his first win, and he in 2004 for Ironman New Zealand, and he passed, I forget the name, but it was a foreign guy who had a 18-minute lead off the bike, and he passed him with 1,500 meters to go. And I think it was Cam Brown's first win when he was 28 as well. So it's pretty funny. It's almost like, the race has happened again 20 years later. But yeah, it's pretty cool. Brownie was out on the course when I was running on the last lap as well, and he said, dig it in, like you can get him. He's not looking great. So that really spurred me on to think, I really need to do this for the boys now. So, I was the Kiwi one kind of leading the charge on that last lap. So I had to risk it and make sure I got the American, especially when it's Starky as well. He talked so much rubbish that we wouldn't have heard the end of it if he'd won the race. So, yeah, it was pretty cool. And, it's great to be that we're all on the start line at this time. It's like the different eras. Like, I guess I see Terenzo and Braden as kind of the guys leading the charge from New Zealand at the moment. Like, they've kind of been in that 5th or 6th place in Kona, and, Brownie's been there a lot of times and still racing at a very high level for his age. So, it's pretty cool that we can all share the start line together. And I think we've actually all made each other lift our game as well, because, you don't want to be left behind in your own country. So everyone's trying to be competitive with each other, and hopefully that pays off for New Zealand having a good race in Kona this year.
Nice. And did you get to talk to Starky after the finish? Because I saw something that he'd posted on either Instagram or Twitter, which was a photograph of him just looking utterly dejected after the finish line. God bless him. And I'm sure there's like a sort of healthy professional respect between you, but it looks like you're taking a little bit in pleasure of having chased him down in the final mile there.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. He was pretty heartbroken, but I guess at least he got that Kona slot for a bit of a consolidation. But yeah, he was deeply disappointed, especially leading the day for so long. But that's racing, and I think he said to me afterwards, like, my wife doesn't just go out and give away $6,000. I'd be so pissed if she did that. And, then he's given away $6,000 just at the last moment of the race. So it's pretty funny. I had a joke about it. And said, rematch next year, but I think we're having the rematch in Kona. So, yeah, it should be good.
And how far actually from the finish was it you caught him? Was it 3K away?
I think it was about 3Ks, 2.5 to 3Ks away from the finish. I was trying to time it, so I had a little bit of time up my sleeve, but he actually hung pretty tough. Like the last lap, he picked up the pace a wee bit. I thought it'd be a little bit sooner, but there was a bit there where he just picked up the pace and the gap didn't come down for a few Ks, and I was sort of like, oh, this could be touch and go here. So it's pretty cool. The way out's really hilly and really tough, so it's pretty hard to keep the pace going through there. And it was pretty awesome when I saw him in sight, because he was coming closer pretty quickly. So it's pretty motivating when you can see something and actually like visually in front of you, instead of just having someone say, "Oh, he's not that far in front," So yeah.
And did you exchange words with him as you passed him, or was it just a case of just get by?
Yeah, just get by him. I was kind of a bit shocked that I hadn't really felt like my legs were hurting, but it wasn't the kind of usual like I'd normally in an Ironman. So I was kind of a bit worried that suddenly it could go pear-shaped and I might be walking. So I was like, just compose yourself, get past him, make a gap, and then relax a wee bit. Because I didn't know if I was just going to suddenly pull up with a cramp in my leg or something and he run back past me. So
that is the beauty of Ironman, isn't it? You're on the edge of, I can catch him, I can win, but then 10 seconds later, you're not sure you can even actually finish. So you never know what you're going to get till the final 100 yards, do you?
No, not at all. I was still, even when I couldn't see him behind me, I still kept looking behind, and just trying to put one foot in front of the other, like, don't screw this up.
Oh, well, listen, man, it's an amazing race to read about, and it's been great hearing about it in person. What are your plans now between this point and Kona? Presumably you're going to have a bit of a break, 'cause it's the end of your season, isn't it? And then will it be the start of the rebuild then, looking towards Kona in October?
Yeah, so I guess with breaking my hand, it sort of made a bit of a forced break as well. So I've just had the last few weeks not doing much, just the odd jog, and I'll probably get back into a little bit of training next week. And then I've got a bunch of half Ironmans, and I'll go to the Asia Pacific Champs in Vietnam for 70.3, which is, I think Patrick Lang is racing as well. So it's a really hot race too. So that'll be a good bit of prep. And I'm thinking about doing Challenge Roth as well. And then I'll spend a few months in Girona before heading to Kona.
Nice. Good stuff. Oh, well, listen, man, thank you so much for taking the time for coming on. We really appreciate it. And we'll be following your continued progress with great interest over the coming summer. I hope we can have you back on the show in the future to tell us what it's like to run 2:30 something at Kona.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. That'd be cool.
All right, man, take it easy. We'll speak to you again soon.
Yeah, cool. Thanks, mate.
Hells, it's almost like you channeled Mike Phillips today in your half marathon in the never give up stakes.
Yeah, but I sort of think, oh God, a bit of like, rubbish period days, a bit insignificant compared to a broken hand, isn't it?
It's pretty full on to crash, ride 90k with a broken hand, and then close with a 2:40.05 for the marathon.
Yep. That's impressive.
Just an amazing performance. Yeah, he's a real talent for the future.
Oh, I mean, I really, it is the don't give up thing, isn't it? But to be able to do that and carry on is, it's mental. Yeah. It's epic.
I love that. Closing your mind off to one kind of pain to kind of distract you from another. I love that idea of the human body being able to overcome physical challenges almost through force of will, Yeah,
it really, honestly, it does make me feel quite rubbish for what I was saying about earlier, but never mind. There you go.
You did the same thing. You overcame your challenge today. You had to go to the Portaloo, which is never pleasant in the race, and then you gritted your teeth for the whole way around. Good on you.
True.
You'd be feeling terrible if you dropped out, Hells, but you didn't. You completed it, so you're getting my Mike Phillips Hard Woman of the Week award.
Thanks. No, it is. It's a bit. It's like Susie Cheatham. She had a really bad. Didn't she?
She broke her elbow and her arm or something.
Yeah, mid race. Yeah, and just carried on. Yeah, it's
South Africa, wasn't it? I think.
Yep, that's right.
Yeah.
So I don't think we recommend everyone to go and break a piece of their body and see if they can carry on. But no. To those who can, brilliant.
The thing that, like everybody out there at the back end of an iron distance race or even the 70.3 is really hurting, and everyone's like fighting those demons that are telling them that they should have another walk, they should stop, they could give up, they didn't have to do the next lap of the run. Everyone's dealing with that. So I think that's a common thread through all of us. It's the challenge yourself to do something that's going to be physically unpleasant for a while because you want to overcome that barrier of some voice in your own head telling you can't do it.
Well, funnily enough, actually, Rob, it is, it isn't just the Ironman or 70.3. I think it is any, if you're going out to race a hard 5K, if you're going to go and do an Olympic distance race.
You're right. It's any kind of competition, isn't it? Any kind of physical challenge. Yeah,
any time trial on the bike, or even, it's been really interesting, actually. Like, I've been doing a lot of sort of an interval session once a week running, right? And every time I see it, it's obviously different every week. I look at it and I think, oh my God, there's no way I can do that. Like, I can't do that. And then I sort of start and, you get the first one out of the way and you think, oh, how am I going to do, let's say, just as an example, how am I going to do 5 more of that?
Yeah.
But you sort of break it down and you do. And it's those ones where you think, you know what? I've proven to myself that I can do it when I least think, when I'm really doubting that I can, and that I've got it in me. And that is where you get so strong mentally from doing that.
That's it, yeah. I think it's a physical expression of mindfulness. It's the same thing that people get when they meditate and practice being in the now. A lot of athletes don't think of it like that, but it's definitely this. It's coming from the same place. It's breaking something down into, you don't have to do the next 6 intervals right now. You just have to do this interval right now. Just the same as, you don't have to go to this job that you hate forever right now. You just have to go for today. Not that I'm advocating doing a job you hate for the rest of your life, quite the opposite, in fact. But I think the mindfulness aspect of it, that's how a lot of athletes actually get into thinking about the inner world and the mental world, by going, right, I'm overcoming this challenge that's telling me to stop here. Look what I'm capable of doing when I apply my mind to it. And then we do that over a period of time, and we realize that we can keep on building up this mental strength by doing something repeatedly that's going to get us to a point where, most people when they start training for any event don't think they can actually achieve it. But it's the process of doing the day in, the day out, the interval by interval, the minute by minute, that gives you that confidence that you can actually do it.
Yep, massively. Yeah, and Rob, talking of mental stuff, talking of mental strength and, mental skills and everything, next week on the podcast, we are basically dedicating the whole podcast to training our brains ahead of the season. So we have a sports psychologist on, and she answers your questions, because we asked you to give us your questions in the Facebook group and things. So it's a really useful sort of 40 minutes with tips and different experiences and stories to help train that brain. Whether you're getting ready to race, whether you've maybe had a bad race and you're trying to get beyond that. So loads of good stuff in there.
Great. So watch out for that sports psychology special next week from the Oxygenaddict Triathlon Podcast. Okay, so we've got some news for you, some exciting news from my point of view this week, Hells. The news is sponsored by our new sponsor, Tribe, and you can find them at wearetribe.co. Now, we mentioned at the start of the show, they've got an amazing offer on. You can try a trial pack of 6 of their delicious energy bars, and protein shakes for just £1, and that's including postage and packaging. Now, full heads up here, Hells and I have just been sent a free pack each, haven't we, Hells?
Yep, we have.
Delicious. Came through the door in a smart little blue envelope, little blue box. So it even gets posted through, and there's no excuse for my postman to take it back to the post office like he usually does. So that's pretty cool. Open the box up, and inside, I don't know what you got in yours, Hells, but I've got chocolate brownie protein bar, coffee and walnut protein bar, chocolate peanut butter. You've got those as well?
Chocolate peanut butter, chocolate salt and caramel energy bar, nice. And then a sachet of cocoa and sea salt protein recovery shake. That will be coming in handy over the next few weeks.
You need to get you after your half marathon today.
Yeah.
So listen, Tribe bars are 100% natural. They're gluten-free, dairy-free, and vegan. And the guys behind it, Tom, Rob, and Guy, started Tribe in 2015 after they did a 1,000-mile run across Eastern Europe. And they were basically completely fed up with the synthetic sports nutrition that they found out there at the time. So they've created their own natural energy bars, protein bars, etc. for you guys. And we get to reap the rewards of it, basically. So, like we said, we are tribe.co/Oxygenaddict and use the code TRIBEOxygenaddict and you can get a 6-pack through the door for just £1. It is a no-brainer. Get on it. They're delicious. All right, so the news this week, Hells, the first thing from me, I had an inkling that this would be coming, but I didn't think it'd be coming so quickly. We talked about Cervelo's new P5 last week. They've released the P3X during the week this week. So, you know the P5X, the beam bike version that they had out last year?
Yes.
So this one comes in a hell of a lot cheaper than that one. So I think the prices on that one were 12 grand and 15 grand for the P5X. The P3X comes in at 8 grand or 10 grand US. So, you know, it's still an expensive bike, but considerably cheaper. And they've made it lighter and cheaper than the P5X. So it's almost like the P5X was the prototype and the P3X has come out and it's significantly lighter. I think the frame set's 15 or 20% lighter. So very cool looking indeed. I don't think we're done with seeing innovations from Cervelo this year yet. And I imagine within a year we're going to see this trickling down maybe to a P2X. Possibly even at a lower.
Do you reckon?
Yeah, definitely. I think so. I think they'll roll it right the way down the range. From what I've been hearing,
from what you can gather.
Yeah, it's one of what I can gather. So watch the space anyway.
Rumours or sources?
Let's say rumours. All right, the second bit of news is that the World 70.3 Championships are going to go back to USA in 2021. So they're in Nice this year, 2019. They're headed to Taupo in New Zealand in 2020. And then the two races it looks like it's between are either going to be Chattanooga or St. George, Utah.
Yes.
Was Chattanooga it 2017 or 2018? 2017, wasn't it?
Yes.
Because 2018 was in South Africa.
Correct.
Yeah.
And 2016 was in Australia, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
Sunshine Coast, yeah.
I remember people who raced at Chattanooga. It was a tough course, really hilly on the bike and endlessly rolling really on the run. Yeah, it did.
And St. George as well is very, very hilly, isn't it? St. George is a very sort of tough course.
Yeah, two really good, tough, honest courses.
In fact, I think generally Taupo's, that's not going to be flat, is it? New Zealand?
I don't know the course profile, actually. I know it's stunningly beautiful. And actually, we had a listener send through... Oh, do you know what? I meant to find this and I can't do it now. A listener sent through some pictures from Taupo just the other week.
Because they've been there for the half Ironman.
Yeah. Did you get the email as well? If I can find the guy's name, it was super, super amazing. I can't find it now.
But I've seen photos, and then obviously Nice is that one's going to be tasty too. So it's good though. I think, Rob, that they do take it from one continent to another now.
Yeah,
spread the love around the world.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Well, that's all from us from this week with rumours of the upcoming. We've got years and years worth of fun ahead of us yet, guys. So it's all good. There'll be new cheaper bikes, and there'll always be new 70.3 world's courses to race on. It's all good. So next week, remember, we've got our sports psychologist special answering your questions. So be sure to tune in for that. And until then, I hope you all have a great, safe training and racing week. I'm Coach Rob Wilby.
I'm Helen Murray.
And you've been listening to the Oxygenaddict Triathlon Podcast. One last thank you to our sponsors, tribe.co, precisionhydration.com and foodcell.co.uk. You can get all those links in our show notes to get all those little discounts we've talked about during the show. All right, everyone. See you all next week. Cheers. See ya.